For the last couple of years, South Florida's real estate market has been on an absolutely historic white-hot run. Well, it looks like the music has finally stopped. The data is in, folks, and it is crystal clear that a major shift is underway. So let's break down what this massive market correction really means. The entire dynamic has just completely flipped, leaving both buyers and sellers in this brand new, kinda uncertain landscape. So the big question, right, the one we're really going to tackle in this explainer is, with the boom officially over, what in the world happens now? Okay, so first things first, let's really get a feel for what's happening on the ground. Because the numbers, they don't just suggest a slowdown. No, they are screaming that the market has decisively entered a correction phase. And the data? It's pretty dramatic. So where do we start? Let's talk supply. According to some great analysis from Reventure Consulting, the for-sale inventory across Palm Beach and Broward counties has just exploded. We're talking a spike of over 30%. Think about that. Homes are just flooding the market in a way we haven't seen in years. Okay, so at the exact same time that supply is surging through the roof, what's happening on the other side of the equation? Demand? It's collapsing, totally falling off a cliff. The number of home sales has plummeted by more than 25%. So you've got this perfect storm, right? Way more homes for sale and way fewer people out there buying them. And look, this isn't just a little local story. A Bloomberg analysis of Redfin data found that Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach had the absolute steepest drops in signed home purchase contracts in the entire country. So yeah, you heard that right. South Florida is basically leading the nation into this whole correction. All right, so we've established the what. Inventory is way up, sales are way down, but the real question is why? The numbers tell us what's happening, but the real story here is this fundamental conflict, a tug of war, really, between buyers and sellers. And it's created this market-wide stalemate. Okay, so on one side of the ring, you've got the sellers. A lot of them are still mentally stuck back in 2022, 2023, They're anchored to those peak prices. They remember their neighbor getting some crazy record-breaking offer, and they're thinking, hey, I should get that too. But then, on the other side, you've got the buyers. And they're living in today's reality of higher interest rates, higher insurance, and now a whole lot more choice. Their budgets are stretched thin, and they're just not willing to overpay anymore. And that is the result. One source just nailed it. They called this whole tug of war a market stalemate. Sellers just won't come down to meet the new reality. And buyers, well, they either can't or simply won't reach for those old inflated prices. The result? Deals just aren't getting done. So what happens when a seller won't budge on price? Well, a lot of them are just giving up. They're pulling their homes right off the market. Nationally, the number of delisted homes jumped 47% year over year. And this is a really important point. This can kind of temporarily hide just how much supply is really waiting in the wings. Okay, but here's where things get really interesting and honestly a little more complex, because it would be a huge mistake to think this correction is like a blanket covering the whole market equally. It's not at all. What we're actually seeing is more like a tale of two markets operating at the exact same time but playing by totally different rules. Let's make this real. Let's look at a specific example. In a place like Boca Raton, an upscale community, the correction isn't some abstract idea. It's clear, it's measurable. The data is showing a very definitive downturn. So get this, as of June, home prices in Boca were down a pretty substantial 12% compared to last year. I mean, a double-digit price drop? That's a huge, flashing sign that buyers are now in the driver's seat. Okay, but now let's do a complete 180. Let's look at the total opposite end of the spectrum. Because while the rest of the market is struggling, the tippy-top, the ultra-luxury segment, it's like it's on a different planet, playing by a whole different set of rules. I mean, just last week, what was the top condo sale in all of Miami-Dade? A $12.25 million closing at Arte Surfside. This just goes to show you, for that top tier of wealthy buyers, these massive deals are still getting done no problem. And that's propping up the high end of the market. Now, of course, both of these stories, the cooling suburbs and the super hot luxury tier, they both exist inside that broader slowdown we talked about earlier. And this chart here, it really just gives you a visual of that overall trend. Fewer and fewer purchase contracts are being signed pretty much across the board. So if people aren't buying, where are they going? Well, a lot of them are flooding into the rental market. And that naturally is pushing demand and prices way up. You see Miami with a really strong 1.6% rent growth in just a single month. And that pressure, it creates this really fascinating dynamic back over in the sales market for the people who are still looking to buy. And that brings us to a really key trend that's emerged inside the sales market. It's what we call a flight to quality. So what does that mean? It means buyers who are out there are willing to pay a serious premium, but only for the best of the best. We're talking brand new, perfectly renovated turnkey homes in the best locations. And what about the other stuff? The properties that are dated, that need some work? They're just sitting there. They're getting ignored. Right now, condition is everything. It's king. Okay, so that's a lot of data, a lot of trends, but what does it all actually mean for you? Let's boil this all down into some really clear, actionable takeaways, whether you're a buyer or a seller trying to navigate this whole new world. Okay, first up, for the buyers. Listen up, because the entire dynamic has shifted in your favor. Think about it. In a market like Boca, we're now looking at over 7 months of supply on the market. 7 months. That means you have all the leverage. Your greatest asset right now is time. Patience. You can afford to negotiate, to wait for the perfect property at the price you want. All right, and for the sellers out there, the message is just as clear, but maybe a little harder to hear. If you want to break that stalemate and actually sell your house, you cannot, I repeat, cannot, price it based on what your neighbor got a year ago. You have to price for the market you're in right now, today. The sellers who get that, the ones who are realistic and price their homes competitively right from day one, they're the ones who are actually closing deals.
And that really brings us to our final thought. Every time a market shifts like this, it creates a whole new set of winners and losers. And it leaves all of us with a really critical question to think about. In a moment of change like this, who's the one that ultimately comes out on top? Is it the person who just sits on the sidelines, waiting for everything to feel certain and stable again? Or is it the person who's bold enough to jump in and find the hidden opportunities that always appear inside the shift itself?